Betty's bit of butter made the bitter batter better, so Betty bought the butter to the batter maker's baker. You may have heard this tongue twister before, but how does it relate to selflessness? Betty's batter was made better by changing the I to a U. Selflessness is only achieved when you is greater than I. Selflessness is a topic spoke to me because I see it as a solution to some of the things I feel wrong with the world. It is easy to slip to selfishness, not listening, arguing, or only serving yourself, which causes damage and pain. The opportunity to help others that you may not even know can help form new relationships. And being like Christ interests me. It's realistic that I can practice being selfless. We know the world's broken. People need Jesus. Globally, there's war, greed, and fear. Nationwide, we see sin, hate, and division. Locally, we see those around us suffer from broken relationships, hopes, and hearts. More often than not, people act as though you is greater than I. Since people forget sin separates us from the world, separates us from God, it is often celebrated. People think it is fine to chase self-interest, focusing on money, comfort, or status at any cost. It doesn't matter who they hurt, as long as they get theirs. This reason, true selflessness is missing in the world. Take, for instance, social media, and how a TikToker gives a homeless person money for likes. Is that truly selfish, or is that self-righteous? It is no surprise the world is a mess. James 3:16 tells us that for where you find envy and selfish ambitions, there you find disorder and every evil practice. We were warned that what would happen if we made I greater than you, if we were to focus on self-interest rather than God. In my interview with Matt Scott, a newly retired Jefferson County Deputy Sheriff, he made the point that when you deal with a call, he's often seeing people on the worst days of their lives. He needed to listen on his selflessness to find solutions to problems. His selflessness showed up as patience, understanding, and compassion, as well as resilience. He had to do the job correctly, even if he didn't feel like it, even when it would be a lot of work. He did what he did for the goodness of others. His interview taught me that selflessness shows up in many ways, and often needs to be practiced the most when I don't want to practice it at times. I have to be mindful of those times, because that is when I can truly serve Christ. The ultimate goal is to be a servant, not just to serve. Just as Jesus washed the feet of the disciples, we are called to be the least. In this way, we take control of our bodies that do not want to, and act as Christ. By practicing virtues, they become habits and are no longer dedicated to our feelings. As Michelle Stevens, author of Scared Selfish states, all my life I've been trying to heal and focus on me, me, me. But it turns out that true joy comes from helping others. True selflessness is hidden. It does not seek as a show or praise. As where our true joy will come from. Volunteering servitude is a great joy, as discussed by Richard Foster in the Outward Disciplines. Our job as Christians is not to act selfishly, but to remain focused on God's will. As Romans 12:1-2 says, do not be converted to the world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our mind, that you may prove that what is good and acceptable and perfect will of God. We as Christians are biblically called to be selflessness. Throughout the Bible, we are told time and time again that you is greater than I. In 1 Corinthians 10:24, no one should seek their own good, but the goodness of others. And again, in Philippians 2:3-4 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, Value others above yourself, not looking to your own instance, but each of you to interests of others. Again, in Thessalonians 5-15, it says, make sure that nobody pays back wrong for wrong, but always strive to do what is good for each other or everyone else. We are repeatedly told to make you greater than I. What is the ending goal of making others greater than ourselves? Our world, our most important commandments are found in Mark 12, verses 30 and 31. Love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than this. We know that you being greater than I makes things better. We are called to love our neighbor, but how does that translate to the love of God, for God? We've all seen the bumper stickers, he is greater than I. There are probably several in the parking lot right now. By practicing you is greater than I, we honor he is greater than I. Because, as Matthew 25:40 tells us, truly I tell you, whatever you do for one of the least of these brothers or sisters of mine, you do for me. In acting as though you is greater than I, we honor he is greater than I, because he is in each of us. Why does selflessness honor him? Because Christ paid the ultimate cost of selflessness. He had no personal gain. He was perfect, without sin. He took all the sin, all pain, all shame on a maybe. He suffered the pain of all people through all time, just to give us the opportunity to be with him. He knew full well that not everyone would even take his offer. He acted of hope, honoring our free will, that we would turn to him and not to the ways of the world. Only Christ achieved perfect selflessness. We are imperfect, but are supposed to act selflessly as Christians. Selflessness is more than holding the door open for someone or not taking the last piece of cake. In my research, I found that selflessness is actually just love. It is the practice of patience, compassion, and understanding of others' imperfections. It is small, quiet acts of service, listening, common courtesy, hospitality, and bearing the burdens. Jesus said that greater love has no one than this, than lay down one's life for his friends. The human side of me hopes that none of us is called to physically die for another. But selflessness is not always physical sense. Richard Foster states that in service we must experience the many little deaths of going beyond ourselves. We can be selfless when we risk embarrassing sharing the news of Christ. We sacrifice our pride. We can be selfless by helping others and giving our time and talents. We can be selfless by sharing our resources, giving up our greed. We can be selfless by forgiving others. We sacrifice our ego. We practice selflessness when we turn from sin and sacrifice our self-interest. 1 Corinthians 13 says, selflessness is loving other people. It is being patient and kind. It is not envious of what other people have. It is not rude to other people. Being impatient, rude, and envious are all signs of selfishness, because they put the self first. Selflessness ultimately is love, and our greatest commandment is to love. Virtues include selflessness as acts of love, because becoming habits when they are practiced. For Capstone, we had to research a part of our topic more in depth, and through my research, I discovered that virtues bio habits through practice. By choosing to be a servant, it becomes ingrained and a part of who we are. Giving up our control in the matter, and denying our flesh. Becoming a servant means that we don't just act. When compelled, we are constantly helping. Our true goal is humility, another virtue. An act of serving, on the other hand, runs the risk of being a personal choice that could be self-righteous. Since it is said that we become what we think, kindness visitations can be an effective way to keeping your mind trained on kindness and maintaining peace. I learned through my Capstone experiences that there are many opportunities in our community to give to others. I volunteered with a food bank and with Meals on Wheels. Both of these experiences offered many opportunities to serve others. One could donate the food itself, help package it, help load it, help deliver it, or just being the first smiling face a homebound senior saw that day. Selflessness isn't flashy. It is just loving. It can be small, seemingly inconsequential actions that add up to an impact with God. Not only do these acts solve the small problems, they can even deepen the faith of the community. When a single person is serving anonymously, they are joyful and grateful for the love and compassion they have shown by the ministry. Their joy is felt by other members of the community, even those who do not know of the service performed, and it deepens everyone's devotion. My studies on selflessness taught me that it takes practice and effort since we are not perfect. True selflessness isn't even recognized by anyone but God. All our efforts to help others are efforts to serve Him. In order to serve Him, we must submit to servitude, not just serve. We must give ourselves up to Him, denying the body's desire to celebrate, and quietly and humbly live as a servant. Betty's bit of butter made the bitter batter better, so Betty bought the butter to the batter maker's baker. When you is greater than I, he is greater than I. Any act of selflessness is the act of love, an acting done to Christ Himself. Our prayer should be, as Psalms 119:36 tells us, turn my heart towards your statutes, and not towards selfish gain. May He be greater than I, and He be greater than we.